Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Wycliffe Foundation and the Jesus Film Project, welcome and thank you for joining our second webinar. My name is Mark Mayers and I serve as a regional representative for the Jesus Film Project here in Southern California. I'll serve as your moderator this morning and for the next hour. Perhaps some of you watching today took part in our first webinar last September. Well, welcome back. Today's session is entitled Tax-Wise Planning to Grow Your Income and Ensure a Legacy. By the way, if you missed the September 2012 webinar, the recording of that content is available on this very website. The presentation today comes to you through a joint partnership of Wycliffe Foundation and the Jesus Film Project, a ministry of Campus Crusade for Christ. Wycliffe and JFP have worked together for many years in the area of language translation, but now we're teaming up to serve the friends and financial partners of both organizations in the area of gift and estate design. Through the power of web technology, our presenters are going to share with you essential concepts that can help you preserve your estate, provide more for those you love, and advance the ministries and organizations that you care so much about. During our webinar, you'll no doubt have questions about what our experts are presenting here this morning. We will provide an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. The presentation should last 35 to 45 minutes, depending. During the session, you may submit these questions at that column on the right side of your computer screen in the comment box there at any time. We'd encourage you to submit those earlier than later. What we might have to do is clarify your question with you via email so that we can answer your precise question. If after our time together today you'd like to show this presentation to others, or if for some reason you need to leave the presentation early, this presentation will be available to you beginning Wednesday, March 13th. Again, a recording of this presentation will be available for you at this very web address beginning Wednesday, March the 13th. Our presenters today are speaking to you from both Orlando, Florida and Laguna Niguel, California. The World Wide Web is amazing. Now, let me introduce our gift and estate design experts. Michael Acapente is here from Mission Viejo, California, and he's here in the Jesus Film offices in Laguna Niguel. Michael's worked in gift and estate design area for more than 25 years with organizations that include Campus Crusade for Christ and the Salvation Army. He's currently the gift planning advisor for the Wycliffe Foundation, one of the ministries under the umbrella of Wycliffe Bible Translators. Michael studied business and economics at UCLA and holds a master's degree in taxation, which would be really helpful about this time of year, from the University of Southern California. And the question I have for Michael right now is, when you're at a UCLA-USC game, who do you root for? Michael?
Well, it depends who the donor is rooting for. Welcome. Welcome, folks. We're glad you're joining us today.
And our next expert is Scott Talbot. He hails from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he'll be presenting from Campus Crusade headquarters in Orlando, Florida. By the way, Campus Crusade is right next door to Wycliffe Bible Translators there in Lake Hart, Florida. Scott has worked in the field of planned giving for more than 14 years, including 7 with the Great Commission Foundation of Campus Crusade for Christ. He serves lots of different ministries, but primarily focuses on the ministry partners of the Jesus Film Project. Scott is both a certified financial planner and a chartered advisor in philanthropy. He's got a Bible college degree and holds a Master's of Divinity degree. Welcome to the webinar, Scott.
Thanks, Mark. It's nice to be here with all of you.
Great. Both Scott and Michael have served hundreds and hundreds of ministry partners for many, many years, and they are looking forward to helping you today. Without further introduction, I'd like to introduce our presenters, but one more reminder. Please, 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 if you have a question, by all means, jot it down on the right side of your screen so we can clarify if need be, and we will get to those questions near the end of the webinar. Now, Michael, on to you.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Mark. And again, welcome to everybody who's joining us today. We want to talk today about, well, let's talk about managing one's finances. It can be quite a challenge, as we all know. Whether it's paying bills or providing care for loved ones and those who are dependent upon us, it could be parents, children, donating to worthy causes. What Lord do we want to give to, what not? Paying our taxes, which we're all in the midst of doing that right now, filing tax returns and whatnot. How can we minimize taxes and lower taxes? And Scott and I will talk about how we can make some taxes optional. And a big concern is outliving our assets. Will we have enough to live on? Enough income, enough capital? Because let's face it, folks are living longer. So what Scott and I like to do today is present some solutions to these questions. Scott?
Thanks, Michael. With multiple goals and objectives and challenges when it comes to our finances, it's important to plan, provide strategic planning in the process. And strategic planning can provide solutions to a lot of the challenges that we face. One goal is to increase income, and we'll talk a little bit today about how that can happen. Strategic planning also allows us to increase donations to those ministries that God lays on our hearts. It can, in addition, help to reduce the taxes that we're obligated to pay. And as well, we bring in the principle of double duty dollars. Now, what we're talking about there is a principle whereby one can use the same dollar to accomplish multiple goals, and in the process, achieve greater efficiency. So what we're going to talk about today are two specific tools that will illustrate the concept of double duty dollars, using the same dollars to accomplish multiple objectives. And you'll see where that efficiency comes into play. And those two tools are giving plans that pay you an income. In other words, these are ways that you can give generously to the ministries that God lays on your heart. But at the same time, it also allows you to receive an income during your lifetime. Those two tools are, first, the charitable gift annuity, and also, secondly, the charitable remainder trust. So I'm going to turn it back to Michael. Michael, why don't you explain for us the charitable gift annuity?
Thank you, Scott. Yes, I'd like to talk about a wonderful planning tool called the charitable gift annuity. Talk about what it is, how it works, why one would want to consider using this tool. Then I'll show you a couple of case studies to show you how it's actually can be applied. Well, what is a charitable gift annuity? As you can see there, a charitable gift annuity is basically it's an agreement between a donor and a charity. In exchange for their charitable contribution, the charity promises to pay them as a contractual obligation to pay them an income for their lifetime, for their lifetimes. So how does it work? Well, basically, as you can see from the next slide, a person makes a gift to the charitable gift charity issuing the gift annuity. It can be, most typically, it's done with cash, but it could be appreciated stock and sometimes other assets like real estate. But more often than not, it's cash or stock. And then in exchange, an income is paid to the donor, or if it's two people, the donors, for their lifetimes. Now, part of this income is tax-free, which is always a nice thing. And after the death of the surviving income beneficiary, the remaining assets in the gift annuity then go to the ministry that issued it. And that also entitles a person to an income tax deduction. Even though the ministry may not have use of the funds until the people pass away, our tax law allows them to have an upfront income tax deduction. Well, why would someone want to use a gift annuity or consider using a gift annuity? Well, the first reason, and a big one, is income. Let's face it, today's low interest rates are hitting retired people and seniors particularly hard. I mean, money market funds and savings accounts are less than 1%. Even CDs, it's hard to get more than 1%. And these are secure investments that a lot of seniors depend upon, but when the rates are so low, it makes it quite difficult when it comes to having enough cash flow. Another nice thing about gift annuities is that part of it's tax-free income, again, which is always nice. Who doesn't want tax-free income? And another big reason is security. As I said earlier, you cannot outlive a gift annuity. Whether you live to be 90 years old or 110 years old, the gift annuity will continue to pay you for your lifetime. And the income is fixed. What that means is you can count on it. You can count on that quarterly or monthly check being the same dollar amount month after month, quarter after quarter. No matter what happens in the investment and financial markets, your payments in the gift annuity are fixed and guaranteed. And beyond that, it's a general obligation of the charity. What I mean by that is Not only is the amount in which you make the gift annuity with, but also it's all the assets of the charity back that up. And most states have pretty strict requirements for charitable gift annuities and what charities must do. And so they're quite safe. And I know, speaking for both Wycliffe's behalf and Campus Crusade's behalf, we've never missed a payment. If you put an appreciated asset, say stocks or bonds in there, there's also, you're able to avoid part of the capital gains on those types of assets. And of course, the last thing is it's a charitable legacy. This is a great plan that benefits you through the income payments for your lifetime, and it leaves a future legacy gift to further the mission and ministry of the charity with whom you established this gift annuity. Now, a common question folks ask, well, what are the rates? Well, here's just a sample age chart and rate chart. For every age and combination of ages, there's a rate. This just gives you some samples. So if you're age 75 and you're single watching this, the rate would be 5.8%. If you're a married couple, say 75 and 80, you can see the rate is 5.3%. And these rates, by the way, when we talk about your age, we're looking at your nearest birth date. So you don't have to wait till you're 75 to do an annuity. If you're within 6 months of your nearest birth date, we go to the next oldest age. So just something to keep in mind as you consider this. Well, let me show you a couple of case studies to show you how this annuity can work in the case of some folks that we've worked with in the past. The first one is a case study of Mary Needmore. She's a single lady, needs more income. She's 78 years of age, has in a modest tax bracket, and she has a CD coming due that's with the bank of $50,000. Well, the bank is being quite generous, offering her a 1% renewal rate. And Mary says to herself, you know, that's okay, but I need more than 1%. And how do I get a higher return without necessarily taking additional risks that usually are involved in getting higher returns? And by the way, from a philanthropic perspective, she really wants to spread the gospel to Africa. So what we did, we said, let's compare your options, Mary. And you can see the next chart popping up here. We said, let's look at the CD and compare that to the gift annuity. So in the middle column, you have the CD, a 1% rate that pays her $500 a year in income. After taxes, about $425. There's no donation, there are no tax deduction or savings. Compare that to the column on the right, the gift annuity. Here, for her age, the rate is 6.4%. And before tax income, that's $3,200 a year. That's more than 6 times the income that she's receiving, even on an after-tax basis. Substantially more income from this same $50,000. And because she made a gift to charity, she made a $50,000 donation, and our tax law entitles her to a $22,000 tax deduction, which may save her some more money, possibly $3,000 or more in taxes. So it's really a win-win-win for everybody here. You may note that the footnotes at the bottom there, of that $3,200 that she receives, over $2,700 is tax-free income to her. So it's not reportable as taxable income. And just to give you a comparison, kind of an apples to apples, if Mary were to invest the same amount of money in something that wasn't charitable, she'd have to earn at least 7.9% to get the same type of income and tax benefits as a charitable gift annuity. So you can see this is a great alternative for folks who have an asset like something in cash and really would like to have more income and looking for an alternative. Well, now let's look and see, let's say you had some appreciated securities. And so we have case study number 2 here, George and Barbara. And their age is 82. They own some stock in their overall estate worth $100,000, which they paid $30,000 for. And they're getting 1.5% dividends, which is probably about average. Again, they need more income, but they don't necessarily want to take the additional risk of getting that income. And oh, by the way, if they sold this stock, they're looking at a $15,000 capital gain tax. And the good news is that is an optional tax. You don't have to pay it. And what I'm going to be talking about, what Scott's going to be talking about, will show you how that works. And last but not least, they want to leave a legacy gift to further God's kingdom at their death. So again, we sat down with George and Barbara and said, well, let's compare your options. And again, you see a very familiar chart there. We said, let's look at what your stock is doing. Well, it's paying 1.5% dividends. That's about $1,500 a year in income. All of it's taxable. So after taxes, they're getting a bit more than $1,000. Again, there's no gift or no tax savings. And compare that to the column on the right of the charitable gift annuity. For their ages, the rate is 6.1%. And so their before tax income is $6,100. That's 4 times the amount of income from the stock dividends. And even on an after-tax basis, over $5,100 is being paid to them from this investment. And as again, it's a gift annuity. They've made a $100,000 gift to the charity, and they're entitled to a $41,000 tax deduction, which could save them upwards of $11,000 in income taxes. Now, if we look at the footnotes there, you also notice again, there's the tax-free component of a gift annuity. In this case, of the $6,100 they're receiving in income, over $1,500 is considered tax-free. And again, to give you a kind of a comparison to a non-charitable option, they would have to have an investment earning at least 8% to have the same comparable income and after-tax results. And one last comment about the capital gain taxes. As I said before, with a charitable gift annuity, part of those capital gain taxes will be completely avoided, and the remaining portion will be spread out over their lifetime. So again, you can see, even in the case of a charitable gift annuity with securities, this is a wonderful option to consider. Now, before I pass on to Scott, again, as Mark reminded you, you may have some questions that came to your mind as I talked about gift annuities. There is that box in the right-hand column there. You can send an email to us with any questions, and we'll be sure to answer them at the conclusion of our webinar. For now, I'm going to turn it back over to Scott.
Thanks, Michael. Let's go back to the concept of appreciated assets, because as we get into a discussion about the Charitable Remainder Trust, that's where the Charitable Remainder Trust really shines in addressing the capital gains taxes that are attached to an appreciated asset. The type of assets we're talking about, of course, stock, real estate such as land or rental property, maybe a vacation home, a commercial property, even a business interest can be an appreciated asset. These are assets that, if held for longer than a year, are subject to a long-term capital gains tax on any appreciation that takes place. What is the tax that you would be responsible to pay? Well, it's 15% on the federal level, but depending on your income, those who earn a higher income can be paying as much as 23.8% on the federal level. Depending on what state you live in, there might be a state capital gains tax as well. There are a handful of states that don't have a capital gains tax, but some as high as 12%. If there was depreciation taken on the property, then you would have depreciation recapture at a rate of 25%. So bottom line is, what we're looking at is somewhere between 15%, maybe a little over 20%. Would be the rate that you would have to pay on the appreciation. Here's an idea to consider. Capital gains taxes are optional. If you donate the asset prior to sale, you can give away the tax liability with that asset. The IRS says that the individual or entity that owns the asset at the time of sale is the one that's responsible for the capital gains tax. So if you give that asset away before selling it, you don't have to pay the capital gains tax. So let's look at that idea, avoiding the capital gains tax by giving away the appreciated asset. One way to do that is to donate the entire asset prior to sale. This might make sense if you own stock. You might consider an end-of-the-year stock gift instead of cash. You still get a full deduction on the fair market value, but you avoid the capital gains tax. You can take the cash you would have given as a donation and turn around and buy back the same stock or other stock if you'd like to do that. But donating the entire asset is one option. Another option is donating a portion of the asset. You don't have to donate the entire asset. Even with something like real estate or a business interest, it's possible to carve out a portion of that asset prior to sale and gift that amount. But there's another way to make a gift, avoid the capital gains tax, and retain the right to receive income from that asset for your lifetime, and that is by donating the asset to a charitable remainder trust. In doing so, you will be able to avoid all of the long-term capital gains tax. Additionally, you will be able to take an income tax deduction. You will receive income for life, and it will allow you to make a charitable donation after death. Again, accomplishing multiple goals using the same dollars. So just to lay it out in picture form, you would create the charitable remainder trust. That's generally done with the help of an attorney. And you would then take the asset in question and transfer that or retitle that asset to the trust. The trust then pays you income for life, and you can set that up for two beneficiaries to receive income, which is often the case with a married couple. And then after death, the remainder, or whatever is left in the trust, will be paid out to the ministry or the ministries of your choice. What are the benefits in this arrangement? A couple of tax benefits, one being the income tax deduction, another being the capital gains tax avoidance. Let's look at some numbers. Let's use an example of a 65-year-old individual who has $100,000 worth of stock. His cost basis is $20,000. That's what he originally paid for it. So there is a gain of $80,000 on that stock. If he sold the stock, he would be paying taxes on the gain on that $80,000. We'll assume a tax bracket of 35% for income taxes and a 22% capital gains tax bracket. What would it look like if he sold the property, if he sold that stock? Well, first, he would have to pay $17,600 in long-term capital gains taxes. It's a pretty big bite. Subtract that from the original $100,000, and he has left to invest $82,400. If we assumed a 5% return on that money, that would provide him with $4,120 a year in income. Now let's take that same stock and instead place it into a charitable remainder trust, and then sell the property, sell the stock under that tax-free umbrella of the trust. What would the tax be? Well, there would be no capital gains tax because it would be completely avoided due to the fact that it's a charitable trust. This individual would also be entitled to a $14,000 income tax deduction. He wouldn't be able to write off the full amount, but he would still get a very healthy income tax deduction for the donation to the trust. And in his tax bracket, this would end up saving him about $5,000 in income taxes for that year. So what does he have to work with? He still has the original $100,000. There has been no erosion due to a capital gains tax because that was avoided. And we can add to that the $5,000 he realized in income tax savings. So his nest egg, instead of being a little over $82,000, is now $105,000. Investing that at 5% would provide him with $5,250 a year. That's a 27% increase in his income on those same funds. Let me tell you the story about a couple we worked with a few years ago, Marty and Ludine Martin. They came to us with a number of concerns. They owned a farm. They were getting ready to sell the farm and retire, and they were hoping to take the proceeds from the sale of the farm and use that as their nest egg because they needed income for their retirement years. At the same time, they were hoping to make a relatively large donation to their ministries because there would be a large amount of cash becoming liquid in the process. They also knew that they were probably going to have a significant capital gains tax to deal with. So we put our heads together and worked with them and came up with a couple of solutions. One being a charitable remainder trust, which we'll talk about. Another is a donor-advised fund. Now, we won't go into detail on that today, although we do plan to deal with this in an upcoming webinar. But for now, let me just explain that a donor-advised fund is a personal giving fund that allows them immediate tax benefits, but also gives them time to make distributions to the charities that they choose over a period of time. But the central vehicle to this plan for Marty and Ludine was the Charitable Remainder Trust, which allowed them to address all of their concerns. What was the outcome? The outcome is that despite a relatively large capital gains tax, they were able to avoid all of that capital gains tax. They also received an income tax deduction. both for the value of the farm that was placed into the trust prior to sale and for the outright donation that was made from the farm proceeds as well to their donor advised fund. The charitable remainder trust generated income for them, gave them about 40% more income than they would have had they sold the farm and invested what was left. It was those tax benefits that created that extra income for them. It also gave them the opportunity to make a significant immediate charitable donation in accordance with their wishes, and an even larger donation earmarked for ministry after their death. So in Marty and Ludine Martin's case, this happened to be a tool that made sense for them. Now, you may have noticed that as we've talked about the charitable gift annuity and the charitable remainder trust, there are some similarities and also a few differences. So let's just take a look at some of those differences and help you to sort through how they each work, what makes each tool unique, and that might help you to determine which, if either of these, would make sense for you at some point. Column number 2 in the purple is the charitable gift annuity, and then the orange column, the charitable remainder trust, and to the right in blue is a summary, just kind of a conclusion on that particular point. So let's start at the top of the chart and take a look at the tax deduction. How does the charitable gift annuity and the charitable remainder trust compare when it comes to the income tax deduction? Well, this isn't a huge feature of either, but as you've noticed, both tools allow you to take a partial income tax deduction on the amount of funds that you place in either the gift annuity or the charitable remainder trust. And bottom line, it's going to be roughly the same. What's exciting here is that these two tools are among the few ways that you can actually receive an income tax deduction during your lifetime for a charitable contribution that's made after death. It's a little difference, very little difference there when it comes to the income tax deduction. What about the capital gains tax? With a charitable gift annuity, they are not practical assets for funding any and all appreciated assets. So typically something like stock or an immediately liquid appreciated asset could be used. Very often we see these funded with cash, but if you use appreciated stock, for example, as Michael pointed out, you can avoid some of the capital gains tax, and some of it is spread out over your life expectancy. With a charitable remainder trust, it is more ideally suited for any and all types of appreciated assets, and it allows you to avoid the capital gains tax completely. So we often see folks funding a charitable remainder trust primarily because they have a highly appreciated asset that would result in a significant capital gains tax. Bottom line there is that the charitable remainder trust provides greater reduction of or protection against the long-term capital gains tax. What is the ideal age for a charitable gift annuity? Well, they're designed to fit those who are age 65 and up, basically those who are retirees, whereas a charitable remainder trust works well for most ages. So retirees, we have found, may prefer the charitable gift annuity for their particular situation. How would we compare the returns? With a charitable gift annuity, the returns, what you're getting paid, is fixed. You know exactly what that is. It's secure. And one of the ways you can receive a healthy income without the risk factor being involved is that a portion of your payment is actually considered a return of principal, although you will never outlive that that principal. So you've got a conservative return. With a charitable remainder trust, it's flexible. You can customize it to what you want. So you can structure that to be very conservative, moderate, even a little more on the aggressive side if that's your preference. But it really does depend on your risk-reward tolerance, which would be the better option. What about the administration? The administration of a charitable gift annuity, it's handled by the issuing charity. With a charitable remainder trust, you would be required to create the trust. Obviously, there would be attorney fees involved with that. There would need to be a trustee to manage the trust, and you would need to have a separate tax return done for the charitable remainder trust each year. So there is some administrative, there are administrative issues and costs that go along with the charitable remainder trust, making the gift annuity simpler by comparison. The charitable beneficiary. With a charitable gift annuity, you would be limited to the issuing charity. In other words, that is the organization that receives the charitable benefit. However, with a charitable remainder trust, you're free to choose one or multiple charities, and you can even change those over time. So the charitable remainder trust provides greater flexibility if you're looking at benefiting multiple charities. So down to the bottom, what are the overall strengths? In my opinion, the strengths of the charitable gift annuity are its simplicity and also the consistency of the payments that you would be receiving. With the charitable remainder trust, the strengths are, one, the flexibility that it offers, and the fact that it allows you to completely avoid the capital gains tax, making it a very nice vehicle when dealing with highly appreciated assets. So it really depends on your personal situation, depends on your goals, desires, your comfort level to determine which tool would make the most sense for you. It's not a cookie-cutter approach or a one-size-fits-all by any means. Before turning it back to Michael, let me just again add a reminder that we welcome your questions. Feel free to submit them to us. The sooner the better, and so that we have some time to look at that and make sure we're clarifying the question, and we would be happy to help you with those at the end. Michael?
Thanks, Scott, and thanks for that great coverage of the charitable remainder trust. So how can we help you? Our service here is designed for you, our partners. Scott and I, we're here to help people think through some of the comparisons that Scott presented in the previous slide. I mean, our goal is to help you. Our goal is to help you be good stewards of the assets God has given you to help further His kingdom. And so we sit down with people and work through these questions, these comparisons. What is it you want to accomplish? And then what Scott and I like to do is help show you the best ways to go about accomplishing those goals and objectives when it comes to your giving. So this is our ministry to you. When we sit down with folks, of course, all information is confidential. And there's never any cost or obligation to give. I think Scott will attest to this as well. Our great joy comes from sitting down with people and talking about giving, talk about ways to give, what's the best way to give. And so, again, there's no obligation or cost. We want to serve you. If we need, we're happy to work with your trusted advisors. And I think it's really important to say that like my wife and I, we support many ministries, our church and some other charities, and I'm sure Scott and his family does the same. The point is this: even though we work for Wycliffe or Crusade, we understand you have multiple charitable interests, and that's great. Our jobs help you be the best stewards and show you the best way to go about your giving. And really, it's up to the Holy Spirit to direct and guide you as to where He wants you to give when it comes to different charities. Scott, why don't you share why people should be on our team?
Well, just a couple of things to keep in mind. As Michael said, there is no cost, no pressure. There's no hidden agenda. We would love the opportunity to serve you. Another thing to think about is that in working with either Michael or myself or anyone on our teams, you can receive help from friends that you know and trust, and you should feel comfortable about that. Furthermore, it's important for you to be able to understand all of your options. We very often are able to share ideas and concepts that you would not necessarily hear from other professional advisors. Proverbs 15:22 says that plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. So by including a planned giving consultant on your team of advisors gives you a better opportunity to understand all of your options and make more informed decisions. And perhaps the most important issue is that we want to help you to reap the benefits of wise stewardship. Benefits that will help you and your family, and that brings us a great deal of joy in what we do. Mark?
Well, hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate your input on all of this information. Every time I hear you guys, I'm just amazed at all the knowledge and expertise you have in this very important area of study. Michael and Scott, very, very insightful. I don't know about the folks on the webinar out there, but I was helped incredibly through your presentation. You know, in light of the current economy, the last 4 or so years, our new higher tax rates combined with this presentation, I'm sure there's lots and lots and lots of questions that we have coming from the webinar audience. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question and you have not yet sent it in, please feel free to jot that down in that panel to the right side of your computer screen, and we'll be sure to see if we can handle those questions. So we're going to go ahead and go for our first question. Now, I need to look at another computer, so excuse my glance over here to another computer. This is our first question, and this is from Eleanor. She asks this question: please explain the capital gains tax on a gift annuity. You mentioned immediate and spread out over a lifetime. So, Michael, could you please take that question?
Sure, and that's a great question. With a gift annuity, the capital gain tax, a portion of it is assigned to what we call the gift portion, and a portion of the capital gains is assigned to the income portion, for lack of better words. So the part that's assigned to the gift portion of a gift annuity is completely avoided. You never pay it, you never have to report it or anything. The portion of the capital gains that is assigned to the income part of the gift annuity is spread out over your lifetime. So it's not as if you have to pay a capital gain tax up front. It's considered part of your income payment and reportable as capital gain tax type income. And that may not be a bad thing per se, because currently the capital gain tax rate is lower than the ordinary income tax rate. So again, to summarize, you avoid part of it completely, and the other part of the capital gain tax, or capital gains, not the tax, but the capital gains, is spread out over your lifetime.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you, Michael. Good answer. We have our next question here. I'm going to read again off another computer. This is from Phil, and Phil writes to us, and he says, if we set up a charitable gift annuity in one age bracket, will the fixed income rise with our ages moving into a higher bracket? And then he says, thank you. Scott, can you take that one?
Sure. The rate on a charitable gift annuity is established at the time that it's taken out. It doesn't change once you start the gift annuity, but the age at the date it starts is what is used to calculate that payout rate.
I gotcha. Here's our next question. I'm being handed the computer as we speak. Excuse me. This is from Roger. What would be a good plan so that children receive payments after my death? Or are there plans that guarantee payment for 20 or 30 years, whether I'm dead or alive? Michael.
Okay, I think that's one we both can address.
Okay.
When I visit with a person who says, I like the income to go to my children or to their children after we pass away, typically a charitable remainder trust is a good option for that, because you can set up to pay for your lifetimes and in a term of years up to 20 maximum for your children. So when I hear that question or that planning objective, I typically think about the charitable remainder trust as a first option. What do you think, Scott?
Well, this is part of getting an understanding of somebody's complete financial picture, what their goals and objectives are, perhaps other assets. I'll use the example of Marty and Ludine Martin. They have children. They wanted to make sure that the children were included and receive something at the time of their death too. As you notice with the gift annuity and the charitable remainder trust, funds are going to charity after the mom and dad's death, and so those assets would not be available to children, except for the example you gave, Michael, with the charitable remainder trust that continues on after death. What they did is used other assets to provide the bequest that they desired for their children. Another thing to keep in mind, you notice that both with the gift annuity and the charitable remainder trust, there's additional income. Some people will use that additional income to either A, invest that over their lifetime and replace the value of that asset for the benefit of the children, or B, to purchase life insurance that would create that benefit for the children after death as well. So if that's an important goal, that's certainly something that could be brought into the discussion and worked out as part of the plan.
Okay, good. How often does the gift annuity pay is another question we might ask. Michael?
Yeah, most people, well, by law, it has to pay at least once a year. But most people choose either a quarterly or a monthly frequency. And that's really more a question of how often do you want to receive your income. And again, most people, it's quarterly. Some people like it monthly. And so that's pretty much whatever the person feels they need it, how often they need it, we can do that.
Great. And that would be the same on your end, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Hey, you know, I don't know if I said this, but I'm one of the donor reps in the Jesus Film office, and oftentimes one of our gift and estate design folks will come out from Florida or Pennsylvania, and I'll get to take them on donor visits, and I'll have an opportunity to expose ministry partners, donors, to the information that Scott and Michael are presenting this morning. And I just remember one time, just a little anecdote here, if I may. I was with an elderly gentleman in a town south of here, and we had a question. And I had one of our gift and estate design guys with me, and the question to the donor was related to some information that the CPA would have. And so literally, the man called the CPA, put him on the line with the expert, and they were able to come to a conclusion about the question right then and there. It was very, very helpful. So as a field representative of the Jesus Film, it's been my experience on many occasions to have these advisors with me is very, very helpful. Which leads to the next question. How are my advisors involved with a gift annuity or a CRT? Can you give us an example, Michael?
Sure, and I'm sure Scott has them as well. Again, it depends on the planning situation, as Scott said, the complexity of things we're looking at. With the gift annuity, they're generally pretty straightforward and simple plans to do. And it's really a question of how does this fit into your overall estate and financial plans. And sometimes it's really important to have the CPA there or the attorney there to help provide his or her input into that. Now when we talk about charitable remainder trusts, those involve sometimes more non-liquid assets, and the questions there are more questions to ask in that scenario, and I'll let Scott address that part of it.
Exactly what part, Michael?
About the charitable trusts and
working with a team. Yeah, with a charitable remainder trust, as I mentioned, it's good to have an attorney who is familiar with trusts to draft that for you. The accountant that you work with, it would be helpful to consult with him to understand the tax implications of what you're doing. But I would agree with Michael. The charitable remainder trust is a tool that would involve more, would require, I think, more input from your team, whereas the gift annuity is a lot simpler and more straightforward.
Great. Okay. Hey, well, guys, thank you so much for the answers to those particular questions. Those are all the questions we have from our watching and listening audience today. So thanks once again for your insight on these. It's my understanding that our guests on the webinar today and anybody who's invited to watch the recorded version of this webinar will be able to contact you both, either one of you or both of you, to ask questions directly via email or telephone. There should be some contact information on the screen that we have available if you want to jot that down, or again, this will be available. This broadcast will be available in recorded format by Wednesday, the 12th. Michael and Scott are ready to help you in any way, so you can do the title of this webinar, Tax-Wise Planning to Grow Your Income and Ensure a Legacy. Now remember, Wednesday the 13th, please share that with your friends. That's when this recorded webinar will be available for you to see. So if this web presentation has been of value to us, if you could please let us know. We are considering offering another webinar this fall on a similar topic of estate design. So please stay tuned. I'm sure many of you received this information via postcard in the USPS or via email in your email inbox. So stay tuned. And with any input that you have, we will design our future webinars based on the input that we get from you, our viewing audience. So thank you once again for joining us today. Thanks, Scott and Michael, for your expert advice here this morning.
Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.
God bless you all. Have a wonderful Saturday.